And his opponent, the reigning world champion. It is from China, Oliveira.
Playing for DKZ Gaming. So you see their beautiful dragon lighting logo right here above that command center. Ooh! Starting off with a curveball. This could be an eBay block, but it's not. It's going to be a gas first barracks opener. This is not entirely common. And Stats also doing... Oh man, we have a lot to talk about here. I thought the first 55 seconds I could, you know, sit back, relax. We could talk some crap. But that's not going to be the case here. Because Stats went for a post-gateway scout. And rather than scouting for any proxies around his base, went straight across the map. Which is very odd, because there seems to be no purpose for that. Usually, if you just want to go straight across the map and not scout for proxies, you scout... It is the 17th probe that goes across the map. Because then you have full mineral saturation, you get a little bit more money. But here he's just going to use it to harass that barracks just a tiny tad. And on the other hand, this was a gas first double gas. And then into a marine first. And then a fast factory. Oh.
Yeah. It is the earliest possible factory. And he's floating a lot of gas doing so. He pulled one out of each gas. What is he going to do with that gas? It has to be a reactor, right? After the marine? That much is for certain, but what is he gonna do with the access gas?
So
is it a cyclone opener?
So I think it's a cyclone opener, but you can do a cyclone opener with just like this, the same factory timing by playing marine first. So this has to be with a fast starport.
Right.
So I am kind of guessing that it's gonna be like maybe like a 4 cyclone push or like a 2 cyclone push into like 2 cyclone drop, or you could even imagine something along the lines of a 2 cyclone first into like 4 hellions. Maybe something like, oh, straight mines?
So it's gonna be cloaked mines, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be cloaked
mines.
To be.
Could it be the Thor all in? Because he's still mining 3 off of each gas.
Usually with the Thor all in, you get reactor marines with it.
Ah, okay.
You're building individual mines, so you just get like 1 or 2 mines, and then you build a tech lab on the factory, and because you need some more power out of the marines as well. So yeah. To me, this seems like just a straight armored mine drop, and this is working out beautifully. This is gonna hit like a truck. It's gonna hit really quickly, and one of the things that kind of sucks here for Stats is that he isn't gonna get a scout on anything, and is building triple stalker. That means that his robotics facility is going to be extremely delayed as well if he wants to get Blink before Robo. So he's wasting a lot of gas into these other units, and also getting a 3rd gate. I don't want to be putting a negative
you
Nancy.
Can be the guy. You can be the guy.
But there's a pretty decent chance here. Okay, now this Robo was actually important. So I think we're gonna get 2 shots on the mines. If they just stick with 1 base, if they're just going to be dropped in a single base, this is okay. If they're going to deny mining in 2 bases, this is a lot less okay. And here they're going to drop. We have the mine walking in towards the natural. Do we have any serious damage yet? 3 workers, 4 workers. This is as good as a defense as you're going to get, really. Now, these 2 mines still have something to say about all of this. This mine needs to be taken out. It gets taken out. That is a big deal. This honestly was the best possible defense that Stats could have hoped for. He's pulling these probes away a little bit too quick. We're going to have another double mine drop coming in as well. Blink is fairly close to finishing. He doesn't have the gas for an observer. He warped in 1 too many stalkers.
Yeah, he absolutely needs to mine gas. He realized it right away. Saturating the gas first of all. Now the second medevac flies in. Blink is not quite done yet. The medevac will go down, but 2 more mines will burrow, and this is so much mining time lost.
Yeah.
8 probes go down here. And the observer still, the entire chrono boost was spent on the Robo without the observer even starting. Now he finally starts it. And this is, yeah, it's a very committed build by Oliveira, but it did all the damage it needed to do. There's so much mining time lost, and once again, he's pulling away all the probes. There's no mining happening throughout all of this. And now that the observer has finally spawned, we're already looking at a Terran base who has saved 1 medevac already. First tank almost out, 3 barracks on the way. Second DC is being done, so the follow-up push of this, which will arrive a lot later, is going to be so deadly.
Yeah, this is not looking great here for Stats. kind of surprised to see that third gateway there pre-robo, to be honest. It is something that we don't actually see at all as a defense against 2 gas openers. I believe that Stats was completely anticipating a Cyclone build here. Like that's the only thing that makes any type of sense here. And that was also where my mind went immediately. It still feels slightly better to open up with Adept just to get the confirmation as to kind of what is kicking off there. See if there's going to be a CC at any point being built on the low ground. Like you need to get info. You can't just, march in there. It's going to get... Oh, I really like this call, actually. The Templar Archives is a very nice call. Saying, hey, taking a third base here would be idiotic. Building a Robo Bay would also be idiotic. So there's only really one thing left that isn't idiotic. And that is the Templar Archives. And Stats, he realized that in the moment. And he's going to go for 2-base Storm. I'm not saying that he's going to win the game, because he's still extremely far behind. And he's most likely actually just going to die against this incoming Marine pressure. Which doesn't have Stim, by the way. But yeah, I really like the call of the Templar Archives. I think that's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, I think an Immortal maybe would have been useful here as well. As the battery is very far down to the bottom, so... Can't really poke with that, as now he's trying to blink forward, as he saw one of the tanks was unsieged, only loses 2 stalkers for it, so this would usually be fine. Except for the fact that he only has 5 stalkers to work with, as now he's warping in 2 more to get back towards his 7 stalker count. He also lost the 2 gateways at the front, so his entire production is off 1 gateway now, so he kind of is forced to engage, as the Raven still has all the energy to throw down auto turrets, or potentially an anti-armor missile as he sieges forward once more. Yeah, there's just no production. GG is called and Oliveira takes the first game.
Yeah. Impressive little win there coming out of Oliveira. Nice build order as well. Almost feel like I don't want to say you're wasting it on Stats, but it feels like this is one of those builds that repeating it in a tournament is going to be close to impossible, especially when you're only playing, 2 games a day. It really does mean that people have time to look at those VODs. So this is not a build. I'd be extremely surprised to see this used again.
Yeah, but he can use it as a setup. Maybe it wasn't his favorite build to use, but maybe it was specific for Stats. Maybe he even knew that, because Stats was streaming a lot, maybe he knew that Stats like to go Twilight, even if he scouts the double gas. This was even gas first, right? And he scouted the gas first as well. Yeah. He was in the base early enough to see that the barracks was late. Could have clicked on the gas, so there was that much gas missing. And he still went for a blink. Just trying to gamble on the fact that it's going to be Cyclone. It's also very common, I think, if you're the underdog, that you gamble on one specific thing happening. Yeah. And you try to blind counter that really hard, because in that case, you're like, okay, then I'm really going to win. Because I'm pretty sure that Stats is going into this as the huge underdog in this group overall. So I don't mind it as much. But in this case, it was just the wrong read. Yeah, it was the wrong read, but it is definitely true. Is that very often defensively, if you know something aggressive is coming, if you are the underdog, just betting, just all your money on one horse, I think is not a bad strategy at all. Especially if there's not that many options. And also, if Cyclone is that powerful right now in the current meta, and it's so common to see with these build orders, that I'm not surprised that Stats did do that. Although the third gate is really pushing your luck a little bit in my mind. Like, I even think that Blink before Robo, that is already, it's like, whoa. He's getting risky now, and then the third gate as well, and just no adapt. It's like, wow. Yeah, he went hard. He went hard, and good lord, it didn't work. Not this time, but nothing is over yet. This is still obviously the first match for both of those players. True. And it's just 1 game, so Stats can still make a comeback in the series, as game 2 will be played on Oceanborn. Do you like that map for Protoss? I'm assuming it's one of the middle maps, since it's being played in best of 3. Great Terran map. I believe. But yeah, actually, the fort bases are so hard to take here. Yeah. Like the defensive rotations are very hard to make. You're always getting concaved everywhere. I think this is... Okay, this is one of the maps where initially when I played it, I thought to myself, this is good for TOS. Like, this feels okay. It's under the sea. It feels closer to Protoss, I always... Like, Protoss is kind of the mermaid race of StarCraft in a way. So even if a water map isn't necessarily TOS favored, you always kind of feel at home, Yeah. Yeah, I guess you don't understand. You're not a Protoss, but we can feel it. So Oceanborn at the start, everyone was like, that's a nice map. And then we started looking at it and thinking about it. And it's actually not that nice of a map at all for TOS. So I'm not a huge fan of it.
to be honest. I really am not.
So what you're saying is there's this many Terran maps that even this makes it into a best of 3? Or are you saying that's vetoed the wrong map? Because I've seen Trigger play this as well.
Yeah, I mean it's not a terrible map. It's just I don't like it as much as we have loaded into it. I'm actually surprised that we saw Golden Aura here in this best of 3. By the way, that is something that is surprising because that is really considered one of the few TOS maps.
Yeah, obviously 3 TOS maps usually being Golden Aura, Equilibrium, and Ratu said, as I mean we're not doing introductions for second game, right?
Nah. Second. Yeah, no way. As we're just gonna have a cheeky little depot here. No workers on the map yet. This is important to note, but well, at least Oliveira doesn't mind sending out a quick worker at some point. Could still go for that, of course. eBay blocks are having here to stay. You know, the eBay block, specifically with gas first, was one of these things that Protoss players knew about for years already, and we kept it hidden. Actually, we didn't even keep it hidden. We complained about it for so long, because there was this one Terran player on the European ladder that had been doing it, called Ziggy. Ziggy was doing eBay blocks with gas first, and then following it up with like double Hellion or some other crap, or like it did some tank push or whatever. It was really difficult to beat, and we've been talking about it. It's like, man, this is hard. Like we had like our separate Skype and Discord chat for Protoss players, and you'd think that we'd be discussing high-level stuff, but majority of the talk was just how to beat Ziggy. Both his 1-1-1-1 base all-in and his eBay block. That was legitimately just it. And then, we'd figure something out and we share it with the rest. Like, this is how we beat Ziggy now. And then at some point, Beyond came back from the military and he started playing gas first into eBay block, and every Terran copied it for like 3 months. It's all we saw for the entirety. Ziggy just sitting there at home. I was like, it's the Beyond build now. I guess that's okay.
That's rough.
Yeah. He was good at it as well, man. He knew exactly what to do.
He also played 3x Reaper every single game in ZVZ, and then Beyond won a world championship with it. So,
yeah.
And then he brought it back again, while Ziggy never gave up on the build, whereas all the other Terrans didn't play it for like 3 years. So now it's back again. Once again, Ziggy gets no credit.
Yeah.
It's an unfair world we live in.
Yeah, being censored. Poor Ziggy. Ooh, what is this build by Stats? This is such an uncommon opener. Stalker into Stalker. We just don't see this at all in the current meta game. Like, we really just don't. I'm very surprised to see all of this. I guess that's just the standard response that Stats has against the double gas openers that we're seeing here out of Oliveira. Once again, we're going to see a Twilight Council, this time on the low ground. I actually like this. This is something that I stole from Classic, where for a very long time, people were doing these Reaper walls and then building the tech at the Reaper wall, but then the Reaper could just pop up the Reaper wall and always see it, because the pylon is there, right? And then we started building it on the low ground, or well, Classic started doing that, and I was like, yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. I like that. I think that's a good call. Okay, this is the same build order, which means that had he played against the same thing, he would have died. He's not playing against the same thing at all. I guess this is just his standard response to a 2-gas opener.
Yeah. So he didn't change it at all, because this game was not gas first, right? So
yeah.
I think he just didn't realize it was gas first, or he just didn't read too much into it, as this seems to be a standard response. One blind battery at the natural once again, getting a lot of stalkers early on, completely skipping the adapt, which is usually the most common response. As Oliveira is going for the double cyclone drop, it will hit the main base. There is no vision on the map, so that's just kind of needs to blindly predict what is happening. He is warping in one stalker in the main base, which does die to 2 cyclones.
Yeah,
it's very far outside as well.
Yeah, in a way it's nice that it's so far outside, but at the same time that second warp in is not great. I think that's going to be -2 stalkers over here. Third stalker is going to get warped in, tries to target down that medevac. More stalkers showing up. The Reaper on the low ground is going to pop in over here. No workers lost though, and as long as you're not losing workers, I think you're actually okay with this initial trade. The scary part might be the follow-up here, which is going to be to me, seems like a marine tank push. And in order to deal with that marine tank push, you need to be on the map. Stats is building a prism here.
I mean, the one good thing about this is that he thinks he needs to go aggressive, which means he might also move out. And at the same time, he's also still warping in stalkers consistently, while Oliveira is just trying to play defensive, while being down considerably in worker, mind you. So his only form of attack at this point is the Liberators that are on the map, because he returned to his base with the Cyclones and the Medevac. He's posturing very defensively, Oliveira, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he did see the triple gate blink. Liberators just setting up in that space so that an F2 won't summon it back home. As we're gonna get the push out right now, 4 Stalkers moving in towards the main base. So Oliveira still decides to push. This is hitting insanely late. And we already have some Zealots being warped in. SCV's going down as well. Stats actually in a really nice spot. If he doesn't die at home, I actually think Stats is extremely favored in this game. Taking out 8 workers. Sees everything with the Observer as well. Needs to start moving forward with his Stalkers to meet those Marines on the map. Charge is being chrono boosted. We don't have a backup pylon for that Twilight Council, I think. That would be nice to have as well. 2 gates are very vulnerable. The total gate count is 5. As this Liberator still gets F2'd straight through the Stalkers, will end up falling. 15 workers have gone down on the other side. Prism still alive as well. Stats absolutely destroying Oliveira here so far in this game. And all that needs to be done right now is holding. Super Battery is still available. We get a big blink forward. 1 tank goes down. Super Battery, can we activate it? Yes, we can. Needs to pull some of these bottom Stalkers back as Marines start going down. Oh, that's a bit too far forward. With them Stalkers, I think. We'll take out that tank. Super Battery about to run dry. Still 3 gateways here to help out. I think this is a hold, and I think this is a W.
I think it is, because Oliveira is not mining at all on his side of the map. The SCVs in the natural were not mining because they were A-moved towards the War Prism, and Stats microed his War Prism the entire time. All Stalkers still alive. 34 SCVs went down, and even though Stats doesn't have much of an army right now, he can still pull all of these probes. And with Overcharge also being on cooldown still, this is Oliveira's last chance basically, as Stats is pulling the probes forward, blinking forward, taking out the tank. Still a lot of Marines left alive. These Stalkers do not have blink right now, so that's a very good fight for the Marines. Killing a lot of Stalkers, but he needs to completely kill Stats on his side, as Stats is constantly microing the Stalkers on the other side of the map. All 4 Stalkers still alive and kicking well. As Stim finally has finished, he's stimming forward to try and kill the last couple of Stalkers. Battery still not being powered, but it doesn't matter. 3 more Stalkers warp in, and at this point it's 5 Stalkers with 5 Marines. Pretty sure I know who wins that one, as Stats is tying up the series 1-1.
Yeah, very nice. That was actually sick play. And you know what's funny there? Is that after he killed his first 8 workers or so, with the Prism, I was thinking to myself, I feel like you should go back home with the, with the 4 Stalkers and the Prism. I feel like it wouldn't be a bad call to just go home, clear that push, and then play from ahead. But Stat said, no, I think I can hold, and I think I can kill my opponent at the same time. And it split his attention, it split his defensive resources, but it did the same thing there for Oliveira. Reinforcements were not really capable of joining up with the main army. SCVs all died. And yeah, they ended up being good enough. And I think one of the main factors here, one of the main things that Stats did very well was not getting a 3rd base, which once again wasn't in the plans. His plan seems to actually be very simple. That's to play 3-gate blink with a Prism harass into fast Templar archives and then trying to rush out Storm. And as a result of delaying that 3rd base for a long time, he actually had extra gateways already. So after losing these 2 gates on the low ground, a lot of Protoss players might have been in trouble, but not Stats. Because Stats actually had gateway 4 and 5 already up in the main, which then became gate 2 and 3. So had continuous warp-ins, was capable of outproducing his opponent, and with the help of some aggressive blink forwards and some big warp-ins, managed to clear that.
Yeah, well played by Stats. And even though we didn't know exactly what to expect from Stats, we do know that Oliveira likes those tank pushes. He likes those timing pushes. So going for the late 3rd Nexus makes a lot of sense. So good preparation in a way as well from Stats. And we saw how a build can look very stupid in one game, and then in the next game it can look really strong. So it's not just what is right in front of you. What is the determining factor if a build order is good or not. You can't just judge it off of one result, because in this game it looked much better.
Yeah, the build looked better, but of course you could also say I don't think there's such a thing as a one-size-fits-all, which is kind of what Stats is trying to go for with this setup. But we have loaded in game number 3 already here on site Delta. I am very surprised by these maps. So I just don't understand what Oliveira ended up vetoing then. Because Golden Aura and Side Delta are two maps that... Side Delta is one of these maps where some Terrans think it's really, really good for Terran, and other Terrans think it's actually a little bit Protoss favored. Because it can be hard to hold like the 5th base, for example. It's not so straightforward. So once there's a high disruptor count, that can be tricky. So I'm a little bit surprised here.
I'm pretty sure it's Equilibrium and Dratu set, right? That much,
Yeah,
that much
standard
is for certain,
vetoes.
and then it's probably Alcyone, I would say.
Yeah. And Alcyone, I think, is like a personal veto for Oliveira because he doesn't like how straightforward it is to get vision for the Protoss, with just the Watchtower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like after seeing this maps, I'm pretty sure it's that one.
Yeah.
Because I think the TOS vetoes are Solaris, Hardlet, and whatever else we didn't see yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay, that's why I'm going to take it over for the Casa Status doing the Gateway Scout once again. Oliveira for the first time in this series, opening up with a 1-gas expand. Going for the Reaper. Going for the Reaper expand. This is a build that... Hecate, yeah.
Yeah. Whew, I had to dig deep for that. Sorry, continue.
Did you actually dig deep in your mind, or did you look it up?
What? No, I can't look it up. Then the game starts lagging. So
okay.
Yeah, just had to look it up in my mind, man. That's how I do it.
Okay, yeah. Usually I go over my vetoes, and then it becomes very obvious what all the maps are.
Yeah, true. Except I don't veto Hecate usually, so that doesn't work either, because it's not one of them.
No, I mean, let's say you go over the usual ZVP vetoes, because they're the same every time, right? You veto Equilibrium.
Yeah.
And then the Zerg, the Zerg usually vetoes Golden Aura, Ratuset, and Hecate. So you have it there, and then you know what you usually veto, and then you know what usually are the 3 maps that are left over. That's usually how I do.
Yeah, very true. All right. I think Stats just has a single build.
It looks like it right now.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a double Stalker opener into the Twilight Council. So we were maybe overthinking it a little bit because he's now also playing it against the Reaper Expand.
That's locked. That's locked.
Oh, he needs to go forward.
Oh, he had that.
Yeah, the grain was on cooldown. Yeah, the grain was on cooldown. This would have been a catch. So sad that he didn't get that one, but we get to see how his build now looks in a normal game. The one thing this can be very good against is if you go up against like marine openers where they expand and they don't make a bunker, which Bian used to sometimes, and Rotti would always mold over trigger not doing it, even though, he knows that he does that. But usually you really just want that adept across the map to see what the barracks is producing, or to see if there's a factory. Now, if I'm Oliveira and I see what Stats is doing every game, I would have personally went for just a Hellion drop, no? Or is that bad against just the
No, I
Stalkers?
think that's a fine response indeed. Hey, sorry, I'm just confused by the second barracks. This is really freaking fast.
Yeah, it's for an earlier stem for sure. It looks like 2-1-1-esque with a initial medevac opener. Gumio likes to play these types of builds against Zerg sometimes as well. It's kind of an off-meta build. Didn't Oliveira used to play earlier a second Rex against Protoss very frequently in the Katowice that he won?
No, he played Factory into 3 Rex a lot.
Factory into 3 Rex.
Yeah. No, this is...
I think it's just an off-meta timing where you hit slightly earlier than the Protoss expects.
Yeah, and he's skipping a lot of, he's skipping the Hellion, I guess, on the Factory, and no tank as a follow-up either. So usually, like, the most standard thing that Terrans do is that against Blink, you open up with 1 tank and 1 Raven. Just for safety's sake, and also it's just nice to have these units. Like, a Raven is so good for harass against Blink, and tanks are just great to have around as well, like just getting 1 tank. This is going to be very different. You have a fast Forge coming out of Stats right now, so it's not the exact same follow-up. Still on 4 gases, though. I'm just not familiar at all with what it is that Stats is doing here. Because this is... You don't see quick Forges with 4 gas. But then again, he's also not really mining from the 4th gas, so maybe that 4th gas is a fake. But it hasn't been scouted, so it's a terrible fake.
I think it might just be a Zealot Stalker this game. So he's trying to play with what his opponent knows, and then try try to go from there. As he also warped in a lot of Stalkers, so he's trying to be aggressive this time around. This is also the first time that he's completely moving across the map with his Stalker force. He's checking with Observer, and there is no tank. Can he get into the main base without Oliveira spotting? No, he absolutely cannot. And if he ever blinks in and Stim is done, it would be a huge disaster for him, as he just warped in a sentry. Still not saturated the gas, so I think it is exactly what he's doing. He's playing just Zealot Stalker, trying to completely destroy a push if Oliveira was to move out.
Yeah. We currently have 2 gates done, 6 more on the way. And this is one of those things that Oliveira could actually be really strong against, because you're not going to have all your warp-ins, because this timing is just going to be 25-30 seconds quicker than usual. Stats, however, has so many Stalkers here. This actually would have been extremely bad against Raven Harass, because you have no units around. I guess he still has 4 Stalkers around. I don't actually mind this build. It looks good. It actually looks powerful. There's very little bloat in this build as well, you know, no extra adepts, no other crap is being added in. It's gonna lose that Observer, and this honestly went as well as it ever could have. It's building a cannon in the main base. Stats mechanically is looking extremely strong here, by the way. The response times to like the drops moving in, just having units in position with the kiting and stuff, is actually looking very powerful.
Yeah, even forces the units back here a little bit. I mean, the one thing you cannot do with this is also have tech at the same time, right? It's impossible to have Colossus if you warp in 20 Stalkers early on, so he's now getting it very delayed in case Oliveira tries to mess up an army forever and doesn't actually move out. Blinks forward, takes out all the mines before they get to Borrow. I spoke too soon, as one of the mines barely gets a shot off. Gets a Zealot and a couple of probes. Not the worst in the world for his stats. His stats is a huge army right now. I think Oliveira should wait a bit. And if he does wait a bit and then he hits as the first Colossus is on the way, I think this is the best timing for Oliveira to hit.
Yeah, right now it's not possible for Oliveira to fight. We have another double mine drop trying to head in. That seems silly. And we have a cannon in the natural already. Stat still believes that there's a single mine left over in that medevac, by the way. Another thing that we shouldn't forget is that, yes, usually waiting against heavy charge compositions is good, but a couple of mines, 4 mines have gone down already. So that means there's 4 mines less in this army. Still feels like Oliveira still has a lot of crap though, look at that.
Oh my god, the sentry died without Stats paying attention. Stats is split all across his bases. He has 4 Stalkers, 5, 6 in the main base, 4 in the natural, which means he's lacking 10 Stalkers in the main army, and Oliveira isn't multi-pronging. He doesn't have any medevacs in that airspace with units inside, which means Stats just doesn't have his army in the correct spot. He has many Stalkers, no Zealots left, the probes are left to fight, and this is a disaster of a defense for Stats, who spread himself too far and is getting punished big time for it by just the most simple move, which is just a F2A move towards the front, as Oliveira smells blood in the water and he's F2ing across the rest of his units that he had at home. At the very least, Stats is getting a decent cleanup, but not even now that the reinforcements have arrived. It's a very expensive fight here for the Korean Protoss.
Yeah, and Oliveira still saving up for a potential battlecruiser transition as well, with 1200 minerals and 400 gas in the bank. He can be producing for the next few years, as we have the 3rd command center flying over as well. I mean, this should technically be impossible for Stats to win, as he's down in workers right now. He's down in supply already. We have a Ghost Academy on the way. +2 is finishing up. Templar Archives going down as the opponent is starting Ghost is probably one of the worst things that can happen to a Protoss player, because Archons pre-Ghost are very strong, and Archons post-Ghost just don't exist. They're not around anymore.
Yeah. He also does not have thermal lens. If Oliveira would go for timing right now, I mean, Stats is just trying to stay alive now. I think Stats' position was really good, but yeah, lacking 10 Stalkers while your opponent has the entire army there was a little bit too much. I really think he oversplit. It is pretty sad that he thought there was a mine still in that medevac, because at the very least, I can understand having Stalkers in the main, but your army is between natural and 3rd base. You don't need all the Stalkers in the natural as well.
Yeah. Yeah, one more interesting thing there, by the way, is that he went for basically a pure range army, but only had a single sentry. And usually with pure range armies, you want to get higher sentry counts, because then you can actually utilize the range. You cut your opponent's army in half, and it actually helps. This fight is going to be freaking difficult here. Stats actually not going for Archons, but for Storm. That's wild. He's going to build 1 Archon now because he realizes he's being attacked. There are 3 Ghosts in this army, a couple of mines as well. Thermal lens not done yet. Viking count perhaps not high enough for Oliveira to feel comfortable attacking into this. But as long as there's no thermal lens, I actually think Oliveira might be capable.
Yeah, I don't think Oliveira quite realized that there was no thermalance there. So he's just going back. He's respecting Colossus' count of stats. He thinks he cannot finish the game. In his defense, he's getting a 4cc on location right now, and he's getting 2-2 upgrade. So if he just hits with 2-2, his lead might be even bigger than it is right now. The one thing that can still happen is that there could be ghost storms. If Stats splits his High Templar as well, maybe flanks with some of the High Templars, and Oliveira doesn't see them beforehand, doesn't get the EMPs on top of them. It's one way where Stats can come back with a good fight.
True. At the same time, it feels like the medevac count is so high, and there's still a decent Marine count as well, so Storm's still somewhat useful. Sometimes it feels like if you have Storm against medevac, Marauder, Ghost, is that it's nice if you hit them, but they can often just heal up, and it's not really the end of the world. So we're gonna have to wait and see how that's all gonna pan out over here. We have, well, I think we have 4 Storms available here. Ghosts actually have disappeared from the map. Storms now coming in. Vikings taking out all the Colossus pretty much pre-fight. 2-2 has finished up as well, as Oliveira's dancing in the Storms for a little bit, but there are no more Storms available. As Oliveira moves in over here, as 2 Templar from the 3rd base now transition over towards the 4th. I do believe that's going to be very difficult here, with 8 racks behind this as well for Oliveira, so loads of reinforcements. Medevac count still very high. Mine showing up, and yeah, Stats, he tried very hard. Has a Zealot run by as well at the 3rd base, which actually is killing a lot of workers, surprisingly. No real response coming out of Oliveira there, but GG is gonna get called. And that means that Oliveira wins his first game in the group. It wasn't easy though, and Stats actually played pretty well.